reading with you guys. Again, you do not have to listen to this if you don't want to, um, but if you do, go ahead. Okay, all right. So this is going to be starting on page 574. Background. Remember that this is an excerpt, so it's in the middle of the book, so this background is just going to tell you um, like what has happened previously so that it makes sense. So it says, at this point in the narrative, Linda has spent 6 weeks at the plantation of old Dr. Flint's son, Mr. Flint, making the house ready for his new bride, who is now at the house. Mr. Flint has said openly that he plans to break Linda's willful spirit, as his father had not been able to do. In addition, Linda has learned that the next day, her children are to be brought from their grandmother's house, where they are loved, to the plantation, where they will be put to work and used to keep Linda in line. Be warned that this selection contains a racial slur. Also, I'm not going to read the racial slur. I don't ever want you to hear that word in my voice. So a couple things on that background. I read the last page, and so it says that Dr. Flint was trying to get Linda, who is Harriet Jacobs' pseudonym, to kind of listen to him and be on board and to stop being so willful. Willful just means like doing what you want or doing what you will and doing kind of like what's good for you. And again, kind of this like irony of it, like she's still doing, like she's a slave. She's still doing the things. She's still a slave, right? They just want her to do it, I guess, without complaint or do it quicker or listen. I remember like Dr. Flint also is making all these sexual advances towards Harriet Jacobs, and she's refusing that. So like maybe that's what he's talking about as well. All right. So this section is called The Flight. And remember, flight is like going away, soaring. So she's about to leave. It says, Mr. Flint was hard pushed for house servants, and rather than lose me, he had restrained his malice. So she's saying basically like he kept losing slaves. So instead of like losing her to either running away or whatever, it says he's restraining his malice. Malice is like anger or like grief. So he's trying to like pretend like he's not as bad as he really is. I did my work faithfully, though not, of course, with a willing mind. They were evidently afraid I should leave them. Mr. Flint wished that I should sleep in the great house instead of the servants' quarters. His wife agreed to the proposition, but said I mustn't bring my bed into the house because it would scatter feathers on her carpet. I knew when I went there that they would never think of such a thing as furnishing a bed of any kind for me and my little one. I therefore carried my own bed, and now I was forbidden to use it. I did as I was ordered, but now that I was certain my children were to be put in their power in order to give them a stronger hold on me, I resolved to leave them that night. I remembered the grief this step would bring upon my dear old grandmother, and nothing less than the freedom of my children would have induced me to disregard her advice. I went about my evening, working with trembling steps. Mr. Flint twice called from his chamber's door to inquire why the house was not locked up. I replied that I had not done my work. You have had time enough to do it, said he. Take care how you answer me. So this whole section is really explaining like, so she's finally there. So after all of this, like this is the night that she's going to run away. And it said kind of in the background that the reason for that is her children are going to come up to the plantation house. Their childhood is basically getting taken away. And the only thing that she can figure out on how to get her kids to safety, to not be slaves, is for her to run away and hope that the father of her children will buy them. And we kind of sort of talked about this a little bit with the Frederick Douglass thing, and we're definitely going to see this come up next week. But it doesn't matter that her kid's father is white. It doesn't matter if they love him or if he loves them. Whatever your mother is, that's what you are. So if your mother is a slave, you are a slave. So the only way to try to get her kids freedom is she's hoping that she can run away, and because then her kids won't be this like hold that her slave owner has over her because she won't be there. She's hoping that that would convince them to sell the kids. All right, so I'm going to stop talking to you today because you've probably listened to me too much, and I will post a video of me reading the next 2 pages tomorrow.